Oh my God!
Les journalistes de place, rien à faire en prison. Mobilisez-vous, mobilisez-vous. Go to places, ditch the phones, ditch the phones. Yes, yes. Give me the phone.
On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, the Israelis board a sailboat. I'm your host, Sal Mercoglano. Welcome to today's episode. So, a lot of comments about this one. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Probably going to get a lot of yelling on the comment section. No matter which way I do this video, I'm screwed. So, I'm going to go ahead and do it because people are saying, Sal, why don't you tackle this issue? I'm going to explain this issue to you from a shipping perspective. I am not going to get political at all in this video about this. But the Israeli Defense Force seized a sailboat, the Madleen, off the coast of Egypt. This is the Greta Thunberg boat that was heading from Sicily over to Gaza to break the Gaza blockade and deliver aid. Now, on the sailboat, the amount of aid they were bringing is infinitesimal. They probably ate most of it on their leisurely cruise across the eastern Mediterranean. But there are issues about the seizure of the vessel that we should probably discuss. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. So here's the Reuters story over at G-Captain. Israeli forces seize Gaza aid boat carrying Greta Thunberg. Israel Naval Forces boarded and seized a charity vessel carrying the Swedish activist, which had tried to break the naval blockade of the Gaza Strip on Monday. The British-flagged yacht Madleen, which had other names too prior to this, which is operated by the pro-Palestinian Freedom Flotilla Coalition, we're going to talk about them, had aimed to deliver a symbolic amount of aid to Gaza later, very symbolic, a couple of, like 100 pounds of wheat or bread, on Monday, and raised international awareness of the humanitarian crisis there, which is a humanitarian crisis. Remember, the United States initiated the Gaza Pier, for example, to try to get aid into Gaza, and that was a complete and epic disaster. The best way to get aid into Gaza is through the ports in Egypt and Israel and overland, as long as the Israelis open the gates so that you can bring in the aid. Anyway, going on. Quote, if you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by Israeli occupation forces or forces that support Israel, unquote. That was from Thunberg in a video released by the FCC. She goes on, I urge all my friends, family, and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible. Well, obviously, release has been done because we get a picture from the Israeli government of Greta Thunberg on an aircraft flying out of Tel Aviv back to Stockholm. So she's been released. So this goes back to early June, June 1st, where this story from Reuters, non-profit ship set sail for Gaza after drone attack. Setback. We're going to talk about this drone attack too. This was the initiation of the voyage that was setting sail. Had a crew of volunteers besides Thunberg. There was an Irish actor on board, Liam Cunningham. They all set sail carrying barrels of what the group called, quote, limited amounts, though symbolic, of relief supplies. It's a very small sailboat. I mean, this is not a big boat at all that is heading across. But there are issues about the Israeli Defense Force stopping and seizing this vessel. Israel orders military to stop Gaza-bound aid ship. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz, it's an appropriate name if you're going to be the Israeli Defense Minister, told the military on Sunday to stop a charity boat carrying activists. This is the quote from Katz. I instructed the IDF to act so that the Madleen does not reach Gaza. Goes on, to the anti-Semitic Greta and her Hamas propaganda spouting friends. That's rough right there. I say clearly, you'd better turn back because you will not reach Gaza. Okay, this is where I do come into some issues here. I understand the Israeli view toward Hamas, I really do, but there is a humanitarian crisis going on in Gaza. I mean, there is food shortages. I mean, there's no denying that. And this is, I mean, this is a very benign protest that's going on here. You're literally taking a slow boat to Gaza. The Israelis, however, decided to initiate the seizure of that vessel, and that's where we get into a little bit of an issue here. This is the route that the Madleen took, sailing from Sicily, heading basically southeasterly to a position south of Crete. They got involved in a rescue operation, or at least the aid search for a rescue operation, so they kind of spun around here. but the ship was here off the coast of Egypt. Now, a couple of things here. Number one, the AIS is off. Not exactly sure why we're not getting an AIS from them. They either turned the AIS off themselves or the AIS was being jammed. We just don't know. The position right here shows you the last reported position of the vessel. This is on 8 June at 0224 UTC time. They're on a course of 092 at 4.4 knots. 092 gets you heading toward Tel Aviv, but they are heading here toward the Gaza Strip, probably heading on an easterly course here and would turn and head in toward Gaza. However, they are well outside of territorial waters of everyone. And assuming, and you look at the track line for this, the best speed this boat was making was about 7 knots. I don't think they were ever under sail. They were under power the entire time. But at 5-7 knots, they are nowhere near. Understand, territorial waters are 12 miles out. And there is an issue, obviously, with Gaza, who has territorial sovereignty over the region. Israel has occupied it. They basically have de facto control over it, even though it's technically, supposed to be under the state of Palestine. But they're outside the 12-mile limits of everyone when Israel boarded it. Unless this vessel speeded up immensely and was able to put the hammer down and like a speedboat zip over here, this ship was somewhere out in this region right here when the Israelis seized it. And that is a bit of an issue because you can say whatever you want. You're in international waters, and this boat flies the flag of Great Britain. Here's the data on the boat from marine traffic. It was formerly known as the Bark Corolla or Bark Carroll. It currently located in the Eastern Mediterranean, a 51-year-old sailing boat built back in 1974 and flying under the flag of Great Britain. And under rules, if it is a British flagged vessel, only the British could give permission for the Israeli Defense Force to board the vessel in international waters. Now, we don't know if the British did that. We also don't know if this vessel is still British flagged. This is an image of the Madleen from one of the stories, and again, I get a lot of Palestinian flags on it, but not a British flag flying on it. So we assume the registry is still through the British. And again, without permission from the British government, the Israeli boarding them outside in international waters is an issue. Now, they did announce their intention to break the blockade and sail to Gaza. So could they have done a preemptive boarding? Well, you get really into a tough gray area here because of the legality of Gaza and what the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea says about this. The issue you get into is back in May, another vessel, the flotilla, tried to do this similar run, and it was struck by 2 drones. Now, I have no idea who launched the drones. There's plenty of supposition out there that the Israelis launched the drones. I don't know. I have no evidence about who launched the drones. All I know is that the ship reported damage. There's images of damage up on the bow. Here it is outside of Malta, getting some firefighting efforts done to it. This is the Mavi Marmar, a ship, one of 6 civilian ships that were in a Gaza Freedom Flotilla that were sailing to Gaza from Cyprus. It was raided by the Israelis on 31 May 2010. And 9 were killed on board, 30 wounded. 10 Israeli soldiers were wounded in the boarding. This was obviously a huge event because of the casualties involved and the boarding that took place. Here we saw a much different style of boarding in the Mediterranean. No casualties. The boat was brought in, and the passengers on board have been extradited back out of the country. Now, this is a polarizing issue, and again, I don't choose sides on this channel at all. If you want to read about this in more detail, I'm happy to provide you with the sources. You can go over to the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. You can read what they have to say about this. The Reuters stories I had posted included statements from the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and the Israeli government on their view of what they're calling the selfie yacht, which again, the fact we're bringing social media into this and calling it a selfie yacht, it's okay. It's an interesting statement. The one story I found that if you want to get a view, and again, I recommend you really do a good search on this if you want to get some more information. AP had this story: Israel seized a Gaza-bound boat with Greta Thunberg on board. Can it do it? It was an interesting discussion about the legality here, and I do think it's an issue of question of legality, because The Israelis are upset about the Houthi attacking shipping coming through the Bab el-Mandab under Article 19 of UNCLOS, the right of innocent passage. And so the Israelis, matter of fact, just staged a military attack against one of the Houthi ports today. And we're really coming to an inflection point here about freedom of the seas. I keep talking about this, and the reason I wanted to bring this story up is not because I have a view either way about what the yacht representative and the issues against the killing of innocents. I talk about this all the time. My point I keep going back to is I'm against the killing of innocent merchant mariners who have zero to do with what's going on in Israel and Gaza. I do not get myself into the morass that is everything Israel, Gaza, Hamas, Hezbollah, you name it. It is a minefield of topics. I'm talking about the shipping issue, and seizing the boat out in international waters where it was seized is a bit of an issue, because if we allow the Israelis to do that, that means anybody else can do that too. And so you've got to be very careful when you start doing this. Now, if the Israelis had grabbed the boat when it crossed the 12-mile threshold into Gaza or Israel, that's a whole other issue too, because does Israel enforce the national territorial waters of Gaza? Well, it makes the argument it does. But sitting there and doing it out in international waters, being preemptive for stopping a selfie yacht with activists on board who are bringing minuscule amount of aid into Gaza, I don't know if it justifies the violation of international law, if it is a violation of international law. And that raises this issue. And I love talking about issues like this, because in many ways, the way we deal with the world's oceans is really important, because while we have territorial land boundaries that are well established on land, we don't out at sea. And in some ways, while we do have these national lines and EEZs, exclusive economic zones, we are being very loose with what happens on the world's oceans right now. And so I wanted to cover this story. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do this? Hit that super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly, yearly subscriber. Again, this video is not an endorsement of any particular political view at all. It's merely trying to address a issue of a seizure of a sailboat out in the Eastern Mediterranean. That's all it's trying to do. Don't read more into it than that. Till the next episode, Sal, signing off.